You may have heard that post-biblical tradition hails Moses as ancient Israel's first and greatest lawgiver, and certainly the Bible depicts Moses as receiving law from God and conveying it to the Israelites. But clearly Moses isn't the author or compiler of the legal traditions contained in the Bible. Some of the individual laws we know are found in very ancient Near Eastern laws. They're part of an ancient Near Eastern legal tradition. The collections as a whole clearly date to a much later period of time, and we're going to see that clearly when we talk about Deuteronomy today, and they have been retrojected back to the time of Moses. But nevertheless, Moses is the central figure in the biblical narrative from Exodus all the way through Numbers and into Deuteronomy. And he's going to serve as a paradigm for Israel's leaders to follow. In the biblical view, no one can look upon the face of God and live, and yet Moses, who spoke with God mouth to mouth, the text says, was an exception to this rule. So why wasn't he permitted to see the fulfillment of his labors? Why was he not permitted to enter the promised land? This is a question that plagued ancient Israel, and the Bible contains the effort of tradition to explain this great mystery or tragedy. When Moses asks God if he can enter the land, that's in Deuteronomy 3:25, God refuses, and he gives his reason in Deuteronomy 32, verses 49 to 52. You shall die on the mountain that you are about to ascend, and shall be gathered to your kin, as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his kin. For you both broke faith with me among the Israelite people at the waters of Marivat Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin, by failing to uphold my sanctity among the Israelite people. You may view the land from a distance, but you shall not enter it, the land that I am giving to the Israelite people. So what happened at Marivat Kadesh that made God so angry? Well, you can read the story. It's in Numbers 20. The incident is described there. But the answer is still not entirely clear. It's not clear what Moses did that was so bad as to deserve this punishment. Perhaps it's Moses' failure to follow God's instructions to the letter when he is producing water for the Israelites who are demanding water. Perhaps that's what angers God. But one gets the impression that the story in Numbers 20 and Deuteronomy's subsequent claim that it was something about that story that earned Moses God's disapproval, you get the impression that these are an attempt to explain what was probably a long-standing tradition about a great leader who died on the east side of the river. For that to have happened, for that death to have happened, the writers seem to surmise he must have sinned. There must have been some punishment for some sin. After a very poignant scene in which God shows Moses the promised land from a lookout point on the east side of the Jordan River, we then read about the death of Moses in Deuteronomy 34. God spoke to Moses on that same day. Ascend this Mount Abarim, the peak Niveau, in the land of Moab opposite Jericho, and look at the land of Canaan, which I am giving Israel for a holding. So Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah opposite Jericho. And God showed him all the land, from Gilead to Dan, which is in the north, and all of Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all of Judah in the south, to the outer Mediterranean Sea, and the Negev, the southern wilderness, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the palm city, as far as Zoar, the end of the Dead Sea. And then Moses, the servant of God, died there in the land of Moab, as God had said, and he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab. But no man knows the place of his burial to this day. And the people of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days, and there never again arose in Israel such a prophet as Moses, whom God knew face to face, none like him, for all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, to his household, and to all his land, none like him, in respect of all the mighty power and all the great and terrible deeds which Moses wrought in the sight of all Israel. There's no other human being in the Bible who earns such a tribute. This is unusual for the biblical writer to speak in such glowing terms of a human character.